best time of the night, you know. His talk is the best time of the night. Okay, 8 to 8:45. More of Dr. presentation, the Reverend's presentation. 8:45, 9, Q&A, and then 9 o'clock. I heard it's beer and wine. So please enjoy yourself, Reverend.
Okay, day 4, and I'd like to have you first look at the back part, the page 4, and it says Buddhist badges. Tomorrow, you will be able to pick one of these badges, which are quite interesting, and they are samples are over there. So during the break or afterwards, you can go take a look at it. Some of you know this, and it's made by the Buddhist Promotion Society, and they're quite good. And as a memento of this summer session, I would like to, have you pick one up. And if anyone had come before and won't be there tomorrow, you can pick one up for them. And so, for example, if you look at way at the bottom, they even have gas. Bothered by gas. Okay? And then the one I like is, does it really matter? I'm going to bring this up in a serious talk tonight. And the other one, 14, this is a new one too. I couldn't quite understand. I had to even ask the person who made it, and he explained it. What is. So what is not a question. What is, like, state of things. What is, the way it is. Okay? What is. So I said, oh, that's very good. And then the first one, wake up, that one's easy, right? Aim of Buddhism is to become a Buddha. And Buddha means what? Awakened one. Okay, awakened one. Actually, I had a friend who visited Tokyo from California, and she wanted to know what's the difference between Shinto and Buddhism. Can you explain? One is naturalist. Yeah. One is Shinto is indigenous to Japan. Yeah. Things like that. But one clear difference, tangible difference, is the way you pray or bow at the temple or the shrine. And you know how to do it in the Buddhist temple, but do you know how to do it in a Shinto shrine? Yeah, you hit twice. You clap twice. And so she asked me, why do you clap twice? Well, I kind of automatically, I said something like, because I had the awakened one in mind. I said, well, Shinto gods are asleep. They're going, sleep. So you have to clap twice to wake them up. And I said, hey, that's pretty good. And then I've been using this in talks even in Japan. And you don't have to clap at the Buddhist temple because the Buddhas are already awakened. Sensei, is that good? Yeah, I think it's really good. And although after I told this, someone said, I wouldn't tell this when there are some right-wing Japanese guys around. They may not be too happy with making fun of their Shinto gods. But anyway, okay, so you can look at it and take a look at it, and please pick one up tomorrow. So you have to come tomorrow. Okay, so today we're dealing with probably, as mentioned by the MC, that it's probably the most important of the topics, in that we're talking about Shinjin. Shinjin is the central important experience for Jodo Shinshu. And then the the consequence of that is that life becomes a beautiful bumpy road. So, okay, but as we start, I would like for you to do an exercise at the very preface, releasing a constricted arm. You probably don't know what that is. But I don't know if it'll work, but the best thing is if you can stand up, it will be the best. If you can, for those who are willing and wanting to stand up, and is to have usually my right arm, or it doesn't my left or right, doesn't matter, but hold it with the other arm, and you want to push this up, you want to push out like this, but you want to stop it like this. So you push it real hard as if you want to go this way, but you won't go for a few seconds, and then you release and let your arms go up like that. Okay? So you should make room so you don't hit the person next to you. Okay? So do it for a little long, but don't hurt yourself. Nothing's worth hurting yourself. So you just kind of, your arms straight, and then hold it, okay? And push a little bit, and then release, and then let your arm go up. You notice your arm go up kind of automatically?
Yes.
It's just relaxing, be, let it relax, let it go, and you go shh, like that. And what does that mean? Well, it has something to do with what we're going to talk about. Just kind of letting go, and then you're kind of lifted up. It's that kind of feeling. And it has a dimension of shinjin. So it's not believing in something, but it's more like letting go. And so if you get the picture, you're welcome. Please sit down. So once again, in the parable, we are today at 4 and 5. So he fell off the boat, which means he encountered kind of suffering, and so then he begins to swim to find solution or liberation in the form of going to that island. But here he's not sure if he's going in the right direction. So he's making effort. And so last couple of days we have been here, especially talking about death, how to deal with death, and people, situations, and people that you're not fond of or don't like. And so, but he continues to swim, but after a few miles, even a great swimmer like the sailor starts to get tired, and begins to taking water, and then he finds himself drowning. And at that point, he hears a voice from deep, from the bottom of the ocean, saying, "Let go, let go. You're fine, just the way you are." Okay, and so he said, "Oh yeah," and then he turns over, and just relaxes like we just did, and then he finds that the ocean just lifts him up and caresses him and holds him up. And so he's overjoyed, obviously, because a few seconds earlier he thought he was going to die, but he realizes now that he'll be fine. And so there's 5 is great joy. So letting go and floating, and then great joy. And so we're going to go this far, and then the second session will go here. Okay, so essentially we're talking about shinjin, whatever we want to call it. And I'll talk more about what the right translation would be, and how do you usually translate shinjin? And it's usually entrusting, true entrusting, and which is one dimension of shinjin. but it's not the total dimension. So I would like to address that issue as well. So probably this session will be somewhat more academic, and let's go start. So anyway, the situation that I just described is like Shinran Shonin at the age of around 29, when he had been up on Mount Hiei for 20 long years, and really at stage 3, making great, enormous effort. And we're not talking about just coming to Sunday service every Sunday. I mean, it's every day, 24 hours for 20 long years, and the kind of effort that he made, we probably cannot fathom. But he was honest enough to admit that he hadn't made much progress. And then I have to draw once again this one. So which axis is he climbing? The vertical axis, okay? So he's making effort and he's climbing, but he finds himself stuck. He's run out of steam. He just cannot go forward. Whereas other people, they're making effort or somewhat of an effort, but they're not as self-reflective. They're not honest, And then, as we know from historical studies, that not all the monks were faithful to be monks. They sometimes went down the mountain to the city of Kyoto to have fun, But Shinran wasn't like that, He saw failings in him, and he was troubled. And so he goes to certain place to pray and self-reflect. And finally he meets Honen Shonin, and he essentially tells him. So here on page 2, if I can read in the middle, he could not go further up the vertical axis, but his teacher Honen taught him that he was already in the circle of compassion, and that Shinran is fine just as he is. So I'm using my framework, circle of compassion, and which is we draw with this one. So this is Shinjin is a different framework. So up till then, he's climbing this like 2 dimension, this way, and then, well, I don't know where we can, where we can say where he was. Maybe let's just say he was around here, just for sake of argument. And he finds himself, he can't go any further. And then Honen says, you don't have to aim for the big B, the Buddhahood, but because Shinran found the gap between here and Buddhahood, but Honen says, it's all right. Don't think in terms of up and down. Think in terms that you are in this circle or even a sphere. You're within the sphere of great compassion, and you're in the embrace of the Buddha. So, and that, if you can, so you're already there. You're already there, but you haven't awakened to it. And as you do, you realize that from that point on, you will be guaranteed Buddhahood. So it's a shift in paradigm or focus or perspective. And so rather than looking this way, where he found the gap, if he just says, oh, you're already in the circle, then he found a great sense of release and relief. So that's one way of talking about it. Okay? Another way of talking about it is here. In the parable, is that he's struggling to swim on his own power to the island. He doesn't see the island yet. He's getting tired and he's drowning. So what does he do? He does as the voice said, let go and release, and then he finds himself safe and sound, embraced by the ocean. And the ocean is actually the Buddha. It's a metaphor for the Buddha, or the vow, if you want to call it. So in one way or other, you shift the paradigm, or you shift the focus, you shift the framework, and then you're no longer inadequate. You are fulfilled. But of course, this is experiential, so we all need to experience it to some degree. But we're just trying to explain it theoretically or logically or through metaphor. Now, I was thinking about another metaphor that I had heard when I was a YBA member, and it's the one that Reverend Kodani in Senshin, he used to mention this a lot. I asked him actually recently. I emailed him. I says, "Where is the?" And he says, "It's somewhere in the sutras." And so he says when he was at Ryukoku University, everybody talked about this. So, but he says he doesn't really know the exact, and I haven't been able to locate it yet. But I trust him, and that it's somewhere. But anyway, this is number 3. Okay, let's kind of look at it. Okay. In a well-known parable, a man is hanging on a cliff and about to fall. Okay. The Buddha appears at the edge of the cliff. So the man looks up and yells out to the Buddha, "Help me, help me." The Buddha answers, "I will, ... let go." Okay. What do you think? It's I think it's a great parable. But now, this sounds cruel on the part of the Buddha, but in reality, the man was actually lying safely on the ground, but was erroneously or stupidly, as in S of our gas, thinking that he was hanging on a cliff. So, in a way, hanging on a cliff is an illusion from the standpoint of the Buddha. So here's my crude picture. Here's the cliff, and here's the man hanging on to the cliff. Please imagine yourself hanging onto the cliff. And the Buddha appears, and so he says, "Help me, help me." Oh, great. And he says, "Okay, I will. Let go." So, okay, but this is an illusion on the part of the man. Actually, we can just say, so the Buddha is here, and so in reality, it is more like this. So this is, a metaphor. So sometimes we think we're hanging at the edge of the cliff, but in reality, it's more like this. You're okay. It's not a big deal. It's not something to feel as though you're at the edge of a cliff. And so, again, this is kind of essentially when Honen said, "Daijoubu," you're all right. You're in the circle of compassion, the sphere of compassion. In the same way, don't be clinging on to something that almost an illusion that you've created for yourself, or maybe unnecessary worries, unnecessary troubles that you create for yourself. And that is something that we often do on an everyday level. And so just to give you, even if you don't fully agree with what I say, just kind of take it in and, and I'll give you some better, more mundane examples. Okay, so look at 4, if you can. On a more mundane level, this is like what is on a new BDK Buddhist badge. And as I said earlier, this badge, the newest one, he says, does it really matter? I mean, so you should keep this in mind and say it to yourself when you find yourself being flustered, bothered by something that from the Buddhist standpoint doesn't really matter that much. And so I've given some examples, and of course in Honolulu you don't have trains. I guess pretty soon you will have trains. But yeah, one of these days. But yeah, but in Tokyo I take nothing but trains, and sometimes I'm rushing to a train, and I realize halfway through that there's not a big deal. I mean, I don't have to rush to get there, but somehow you get into this mode or wanting to catch it because it's coming, and I have to huff and puff and run, and so I'm not getting any younger, and I realize, what am I doing, So, but you get into a mode thinking that, I have to catch this 9:12 train when I don't have to be there till much later. It doesn't matter, and that's one good example. Well, how about this one? You go to a restaurant, you just was hungry for that favorite apple pie, and you find that, oh, sorry, sir, we're out of it, and then you get really upset. Does it really matter? Now, some of you are saying, oh, kind of, but I bet you all have something like that. You wanted to eat something so badly, but it wasn't there. And then you get pretty upset. The whole evening is ruined, arguing with the whole family. U.S. didn't get into the World Cup. A soccer player maybe been very upset, but who cares, Or actually, in Japan, they actually got through to the elimination round, and they played Belgium. They were winning 2-0, but they lost 4-2, I guess. And so some people were really, upset. And I thought to myself, does it really matter? And, I mean, it's good to get excited. It's good to have a team that you're rooting for, but to a point where you start kicking your cat and your cat, Okay, didn't get what I was expecting from my present. Have you ever had a tantrum? Or said, oh, quite disappointed? Okay. A young man offered his seat to me. I must now look old. Who am I talking about? Okay, so you look old. Well, older, That's Buddhism says to see things as they are. But we want to see ourselves in a certain way. How many of you like to look in a mirror? Yeah, especially at home, we have mirrors that go out this way, and especially the one like these two on the sides, they show that more in the back. So remember, I want to change religion. But so I don't want to open these two panels up. Well, it's not that serious, but it is. I mean, so it's not important. I keep saying to myself. Okay, and well, this one may be a little more serious, and didn't get into the college of my choice. So, but even then, there are a lot of colleges, and it's not does it really matter? So these are more mundane, on a mundane level, something that will tie into something that is more profound and serious, which is life itself and life after, and so it's a similar thing. And okay, so let's go to the. Now this one is a little academic, but it kind of as I was based on these two metaphors, Shinran actually talks about 4 kinds or 4 ways of attaining awakening. Probably it's something that you probably never heard of, but it's a vertical exit, vertical transcendence. So just disregard well, I guess we can use this too, yeah. So actually, vertical, the first one, exit, is one that is essentially self-powered, or path of the sages. And you go vertically up, and the first one, exit, it's gradual, go little by little. And the second one, vertical transcendence, is still go up, but you, at one point, you jump directly up. It's so these 2 types. And then horizontal exit, this one, it's hard to show it on this diagram, but somehow it's the Nembutsu, like, reciting the Nembutsu, but it's more like self-powered Nembutsu. And so Shinran didn't find that to be adequate. Okay? So the last one is the horizontal transcendence. And this one is the teaching of Honen, and it's the horizontal transcendence. And so in that sense, my discussion of the circle of compassion is transcending sideways to a whole different dimension. And in doing so, you're already there. You're already in the circle. If you're trying to go up, okay, there's a gap. You're not there yet. But if you just go here, or even here, then you're already in the circle. So that is the horizontal transcendence. So I kind of think it's pretty good. It kind of fits with what I was talking about. And I just discovered it, a few days ago as I was thinking about this. And this is something that, usually you never hear about. But I thought that I'll introduce this. But for Shinran, there are different approaches to getting to become Buddha, but he categorizes them in 4 different ways, and he says his way is a horizontal transcendence, and that is the one that fits him. Okay, I see most of you saying, uh-huh. And well, see, if maybe some of the ministry who study this, you appreciate this. I hope. Yeah. So the idea of just changing the dimension, and you're already there. You've been there all along. That's the point. You've been there all along. You just didn't realize it because you were going in a different direction, swimming on your own, Okay. Now, how do you know if you have Shinjin? Okay, this is a big question. It's a vital question. But unfortunately, I think so far we haven't really addressed it very well. And I think that it's imperative that we do that if Shinshu in America is taken more seriously and more people find meaning in it. And because remember yesterday, or I think it was yesterday, I was telling you about my experience in a Zen temple. And the guy next to me, he attained Kensho. Kensho. I like this term, Kensho. because it has Ken in it. You know my thinking. Okay. Or just like I always say, some people say, I've been doing, kendo all my life. For 4 years, and I reached the level of sandan. And I said, oh, is that right? I've been doing it all my life. Kendo, the path of Ken. And I've been born, I've been doing it for 70 years. So. But Kensho. I'm just telling you all this so you can remember these words, Kensho. Kensho. Okay. This is, in a way, and then Shinjin is this, and then Chinese character is like this. Okay. So the guy next to me, he attained Kensho. And so the teachers came and congratulated him. And I thought that was, I don't know, it seemed a little, well, it was the first time for me, I found it a little, I didn't know what to make of it. Teachers come in and says, oh, great, you attained, this small awakening. But I think it's given him confidence, and his work has been recognized. Shinshu, I don't think we can do the same. But I think that because mostly it has to be subjective, the person himself or herself need to come to the realization. But the question is, we don't have a clear set of criteria, and so I'm kind of wading into an area of being what do you call it? Heterodox? No, what's the heresy? Heretical, yeah. But I said before, I don't care. I like to talk. I like to say how I feel, and I plan to support this academically, doctrinally, and so here it is. Okay, how do you know if you have Shinjin? If you continue to make sincere, sustained effort to learn, listen, and practice the Dharma, Nembutsu, in the spirit of gratitude, you have it. Okay? And I think it's legitimate that, for years and years, or, we can't say exactly how many years, but if you want to learn and you make the effort to go for a sustained period of time, sincerely with a sense of gratitude, then why not? You can say you have it. The problem is that when you start boasting, then you don't. I think when you start boasting, then you don't have it. I think if you feel it and and a deep sense of gratitude, and you're making concerted effort, then feel that you have it. Or, yeah, I think that's, and then we often say that mind, Shinjin, is the mind of Amida. And this gets a little complicated, but the mind is given to us by Amida. That's the talk. That's the doctrinal talk. But so if you have this sense of gratitude and making the sincere effort, you can say you've been touched by the mind of Amida, or the mind of truth, or you've been embraced because you're already in the circle. You feel it. So I think take it for what it is, and I think if you have been engaged in this effort, I'm sure you've had experiences more than just aha moment, something that says, oh, that's right, or that you feel deeply about something, a sense of connectedness with people and a person, or with nature, something that you feel very deeply, and so these are signposts for the fact that you have begun to realize that you're in the circle. Okay, so Shinjin actually has 4 dimensions. I have been writing about this. Oh, I forgot to bring my book, but last year I published an anthology in Japanese with 12 other scholars, some of them from Ryukoku University, others from Otan University, and others from National University. So these are people who feel that we need to have a broader perspective on what Shinjin is. And the traditional understanding is very, in a way, very passive, in my opinion. It's actually very Japanesey. And in that, they often use the word receive or, humbly receive, itadaku. But they don't want to talk too much. I'm talking about the traditionalists. And they're very quite strong, and they train future ministers. And so I'm not saying they're wrong. Definitely you have that dimension. But when you just simply emphasize the passive dimension, and they don't necessarily want to talk about the realization or how we feel or experience, the seeker's experience. Okay, so I was asking this main teacher, traditional teacher, you keep saying, I receive, but don't you realize it? The word is in Japanese, jikaku suru. And he doesn't want to use that word. And because that's kind of their tradition. But how can you, when you say you receive, there has to be something that changes within you. In a way, there's an experiential difference before and after. And so, why not use the word experience or realization? But I think the tradition makes it difficult to say yes, right on, or culturally. So I think that, but this teacher that I'm referring to, he is though willing to say, this is the way it is in Japan now, but if in America, if you guys want to interpret it in a different way, say by all means, and go ahead. And so, I think that is legitimate, that cultural differences determine how you experience and express it. And I think that we have to be more active than passive. And so, and then in doing my research and writing, I realized that there are 4 dimensions to Shinjin. And the first one is the one that I tend to emphasize, realization. Realization or even wisdom. And so Shinran uses the word Shinjin of wisdom. Shinjin no chie. And of course the wisdom comes from Amida. But the fact that it reaches you and you receive it, then there is some element of wisdom that we experience, that we receive. And there are enough evidence or proof to show that that's the case, but this is not the place to explain it. But then the question is, well, what do you come to realize? And there are many things you come to realize, but it's basically 2 things. And it's you've heard of maybe two aspects of deep mind, there are 2 dimensions. And this is a passage from Shandao or Zendo, one of the patriarchs from China. Okay, and he quotes. It basically says, we are foolish, ordinary, imperfect beings, and we are forever meandering, wandering a cycle of birth and death, and unable to exit from that cycle on our own power. That's the first dimension. Second dimension is, but we have the vow power, the Amida's compassion, that will allow us to exit from the cycle of birth and death. So those are the two dimensions that we come to realize, and we come to realize, experientially. So at this stage 3, when he's struggling, and he swimming on his own power to that island, he comes to realize that he just doesn't have within himself to go all the way. And so, in a way, that's the example that I am a one big mess. One mess. Okay, I'm glad some of you picked it up. One mess and oneness. Okay, this is another, I think will be helpful. That what are the two things we come to realize? That I am one big mess. One mess. Now, don't put yourself down. It doesn't mean you're a terrible person, you're an evil person, but it's just that, in order to become from the standard of being a Buddha on your own power, you are one mess. You're far from getting there, here. Just like, when you, dana is selfless giving, but there's a little bit of you that wants recognition. That small example is symbolic. That, you still have that ego there that needs to be satisfied. And I'm afraid it's not going to go away. Okay? So that's the kind of level we're talking about. It doesn't mean, again, that you're an evil person or a terrible person, but you're an imperfect being. So being a Buddhist has a higher standard than being an American citizen, okay? Or a Japanese citizen, Just pay your taxes. It's much more than that, That's why it's high standard. That's why, you see more dirt on you, because you looked at from a higher standard. Reverend Kubose, not Sunan, but his father, Gyomei Kubose, was a pioneer minister in Chicago. And he liked the word oneness. And I like the word oneness. In Japanese will be ichinyo. Ichinyo. Okay. And this is like the Dharmakaya, same thing. I'm sorry, you can't see. Okay. So it's the ultimate truth, the reality. But I like the English word oneness. Oneness. So in a way, so the two realization is one mess and oneness. So okay, what is Shinjin? Shinjin, realization. What do you realize? Two dimensions. That I am one mess, but I am embraced in oneness. Okay, so entrusting is the most common translation in English. And people that I respect, including Dr. Bloom, Dr. Taiwan No, Honganji translation, Dennis Hirota, Dr. Hirota, all these people I respect highly, but I disagree. Entrusting alone is inadequate. And then why? Because entrusting in the ocean, which is oneness or amida. So actually, I agree in a sense that he does entrust. Entrust, let's go. Just relax, just entrust the ocean. And that is an important dimension, obviously, yes. But the problem is when you just emphasize that, then Shinshu is perceived as simply devotional, or like Christianity, Christian Buddhist. So I have a 2A, 7-2A, an overemphasis of this dimension has perpetuated the perception that Shin Buddhism is simply devotional and not truly Buddhist. That's the problem. And some Western, especially in the West, they've said things like, Shinran twisted the Buddhist teaching, or that it's an outrage on Buddhism. I mean, they've said things like that because they don't fully understand, because we tend to say, simply believe, simply say the Nembutsu. And and historically, as I said earlier, that all the Pure Land masters, who are the Pure Land masters? Nagarjuna, Vasubandhu, and then the Chinese. No, the first, no, Dondan, Doshaku, Zendo. Zendo is the one that appeared little. Okay, and then Japanese, Genshin, Honen. Okay, so please, learn, have that in your head. Now, all of them, without any exception, they came to Pure Land Buddhism at a later age, not from the beginning. They found and discovered Pure Land Buddhism later in life. After they have done rigorous practice, they came to the realization. And so it's not a simple teaching for ordinary, illiterates, as the perception that we have. And this is the C is something that I found recently. That is that, the perception that Shin followers are in Japan back then, or the Shinran's followers were illiterate peasants. But recent scholarship shows that of the 56 of Shinran's direct disciples in Kanto, okay, where he began to propagate, that 36 of them were samurai of samurai class, 3 were of nobility, 13 were priests, and only 2 were commoners. So this tells you a different picture. And so I think this is something to keep in mind. Now, I need to kind of, verify this fact, what this book is saying, and I have quoted in Japanese, but it's a legitimate book published by University of Tokyo. So I think that we can trust its, veracity. So we have, so the earliest disciples of Shinran were not all, illiterate peasants. And these were people who were learned, so we have to keep that in mind. And then the last one, according to Shinran, the state of Shinjin is actually equivalent to a stage of stream enterer or stage of joy. And both of these are high stages that are at the, in a way, the first stage of awakening. In Buddhism, it has different stages according to different schools. Stream enterer is considered, well, since we don't have much time, I just wanted to emphasize. If you study Buddhist doctrine at all, you can find more about stream enterer. It's basically the first level of awakening. And when you reach that stage, you are guaranteed to attain Buddhahood. This is true with in Southeast Asia. And then the stage of joy is a similar stage in Mahayana Buddhism. And so you can only go forward. And then there is a certain level of awakening. Especially, and simply put, what do you awaken to? You awaken to the fact that there is no independent and substantial self, and that the sense of self, the self, is part of an interdependent nexus. Especially the stream enterer, you come to realize what is called ushinken in Japanese, but satkaya drishti in Sanskrit. But for lack of time, I just will say that satkaya drishti is a view that I exist on my own, or I am comprised of a substantial self, but that is negated in the teaching that we are interdependent. We are interrelated. And so, and you come to fully realize that at that level. And a person of Shinjin, I think, does the same. Though he or she may not, articulate it, but, and I was thinking in the spirit of gratitude. So a deep and profound gratitude, it really expresses that feeling that, I'm not living on my own power, that I am indebted to all the things around me. And so that is an expression of interdependence, obviously, and it's not hung up on the, individualized, autonomous self. So I've just given you under entrusting sense reasons why we should not just get stuck on entrusting. The other two qualities are confidence or no doubt. It's the doctrinal term is mugi, so it's more like no doubt. But I'm using the word confidence to express it more positively. Confidence, I am now imbued with the confidence that I will definitely reach the island in the parable. I will definitely become a Buddha. And so at this stage, he realizes that, I'll be fine. I can, whenever I get tired, I will just turn over and let go. Joy, that too, this is something that we need to also emphasize. And that's why I think sense of humor is important, to enjoy and to be joyful. Because we don't take things that seriously, always. There are certain things we have to take seriously. But, to be too solemn, maybe we're taking things too seriously. So I love this Shinran's passage. Oh, how happy I am. My mind and heart are planted in the soil of Amida's vow. So he feels. So I'm thinking like this is when this is firmly planted in the soil. Now the metaphor is more soil than the ocean, and then once it's firmly planted, he can kind of let go. His thoughts are the second part, and I allow my thoughts. These thoughts are more like our worries and our concerns, and so you just let it go, let it flow in the inconceivable Dharma ocean. So you're firmly planted. So just let a lot of things just let go. So you have these four dimensions. So finally, we should not limit the English translation of Shinjin to entrusting. So then I think, my suggestion is that we allow ourselves to use whichever adjectives you want. Shinjin becomes use Shinjin, but maybe use one of the four or however the other ones if you can think of. But I suggest such as Shinjin realization. Actually, in the Ocean book, I use Shinjin awareness, and that's why some people kind of see me as, I met somebody said, oh, you're Ken Tanaka, I read your Ocean book. You're the Zen Shin person, aren't you? Or something like that. That, since I use awareness, this person thought I was more Zenish, No, Zenish. If I were speaking Japanese, I would say, Zen chigaimasu. Oh, wow, some of you... Yeah, that's a stock one. Even in Japan, people laugh usually. Okay. So Shinjin entrusting. So entrusting is okay. I mean, I'm not saying don't use entrusting, but it's one. Or Shinjin confidence, Shinjin joy. And then you have kind of a fullness, which Shinjin deserves. It's not one-dimensional. And and ideally, if you can make Shinjin an English word, like Satori, that would be great. But I'm afraid it's a tall order at this point. We don't have a D.T. Suzuki in his time. Even if D.T. Suzuki were alive today, he would not be able to have the same kind of influence because there's so much Buddhism now, you know. So, but we just have to be true to our tradition and use words that you feel strongly. That, you know, if you feel you like and trusting, okay, by all means use it. But, you know, I like Shinjin realization or Shinjin awareness. And so it is, again, your responsibility. And so that is my presentation on Shinjin and in the parable 4 and 5. And then next session we'll talk about 6. Okay, thank you. Oh, that's right. You have a question.
The floor is open for questions.
I reserve the badge, does it really matter, tomorrow. So
Okay.
nobody,
Yeah, you got it. We have enough, yeah. Does it really matter?
when I see the mundane level you gave examples of, does it really matter? I agree with that. It doesn't really matter. But that phrase bothers me because it matters to me. Or I wouldn't ask a question. When I ask a question of some people, they say, does it really matter? And I say to myself, of course it matters, because I'm asking the question, I would like an answer.
No, yeah.
But
Okay.
he's saying to me,
The point is that, yeah, of course, we're human beings. There are things that matter. But the point is to be bothered by it or be bummed out by it. These are the things that we have to ask ourselves, do they really matter? And so right now, asking questions is not something that matters to you. So I'm talking about things that make you upset. You know, I just used the word, I think the word bummed out. I think it's a good word. You know, get bothered, overly bothered. Those are the ones where you have to say, does it really matter? You know that. So, and then there are certain things that are very, what do you call it? Important, precious to you. You know, like it could be like we're talking about environment. You know, for me, environment matters a lot because it means the future of humankind. And so, if I talk about environment, and I shared a video about environment, and I got some criticism from a fellow Buddhist. He says, "Oh, Buddhists shouldn't be engaged in talking about this kind of thing." And I just told him, you know, Buddhists can say anything about whatever because we're part of the society, and this is very important to me. But it's just that when I was criticized, you know, I said, you know, I try to not be bothered by it, you know. Well, he was really bothered by it, and I told him, you know, that's not very Buddhistic. And so it's that kind of thing. So there are certain things that we find important. So as we were saying yesterday, you know, express them, act on it. And but the point is that don't be bummed out by it, where you become flustered and you know can't see things clearly. So did I?
thank you for the distinction. Thank you.
Distinction. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So I think it's because remember, Buddhism is really concerned about suffering. Suffering is the things which includes like being bothered, you know, unnecessarily.
So I've had Shinjin. You hear all sorts of different Yeah, Shinjin. So I think maybe, if I'm understanding right, can it come like in moments? You have moments of that, right? You have moments where it's deeply feel it. So, for example, for myself, sometimes Sunday mornings when we're doing the incense offering, it's a strange thing that comes over me, and I just feel like I love everybody in our sangha that's there so deeply, and it's not even something that I'm like analyzing.
Yeah.
It's just this thing, and tears come, and
Oh.
I just feel overwhelmed with that kind of feeling. And then not every time, and when I don't, I get a little bummed out because it feels so good when that happens. And I feel like maybe that is something like Shinjin that's kind of happening, that wave of just almost blissful love.
Yeah.
I-
Well, what I said earlier about your sincere interest in the Dharma and Nembutsu and willingness to learn, and if they're there, and I think you can say that you're in the realm of Shinjin, and then especially you have these deep feelings and thoughts. I think you can say that. Yeah, I would. And then what is important, you can also, because of that, you are fine the way you are, and that you are guaranteed to become Buddha. And
It's very freeing to be in that moment because I don't even think about I'm fine. I don't even think about there's no thought. It's just pure, like a joyful gratitude kind of,
so
very freeing, very freeing.
okay, so that's great.
So
And
good, so I feel like, I got some Shinjin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'm happy. I'm happy for you.
Me
You know,
too.
really. I mean, and but don't forget that came because of the tradition that brought here, and so many people have made great sacrifices to bring the Nembutsu to Hawaii, and you go all the way back 2,600 years to all the way to Shakyamuni, and so you're part of this, this great ocean, actually.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, so you should feel joy, and there also too is that that feeling should also reach out to do things for other people, and which you probably do for the church and for the community and for your people around you, and so I think that's another signpost that if you really have something genuine, that you will you would come out spontaneously in those ways. Okay, that's great.
Any more questions?
Oh, you guys are like in Japan. I thought this was America. More people will ask and oh, okay, yes. Why not? We have I mentioned Japan because as you know, in Japan people tend not to ask questions, but okay.
I was, as you were going through your presentation, it occurred to me that is there an inherent conflict in the sustaining of an institution such as our Honganji when everything is already okay and people know that everything's okay? So is there an inherent conflict in trying to sustain the institution?
The teaching saying that everything is okay or be as you are is different from you knowing that. Knowing, because so I think ideally that each person has to fully experience that reality. And so on a spiritual level, that there is a distinction. And now institutionally, I think I see your point that if you say, you don't have to do anything, you are saved just the way you are, then the members of your church says, well, then I don't have to have Shinjin, And so, but for people, so that's why, okay, so this is something new, and I don't know the other ministers here, and maybe this can be brought up at your discussion, but I think, that I just presented this definition, sort of what Shinjin is: sustained, sincere interest to learn the Dharma. If that's not there, then you don't have it. So you can tell people who don't don't go and study and aspire that you should do that, because it's not enough just to know in your head, but you got to feel it totally. And so, and on the other hand, if we have a clear definition of salvation, or that awakening, then with this definition, you can have more people participate, encourage more people to hear the Dharma and study the Dharma. Because if you don't, and then you're not going to attain Buddhahood. But the issue is that there are a lot of people in the world throughout history who really don't mind. I mean, they're not interested. And that's the fact. And I think you, as president of a temple, now I know that you have, responsibilities, but you cannot get everybody to really take Buddhism or any religion seriously. Another thing too is, I might be a little judgmental, saying that people who only come to church to do, be barbecue Buddhists and basketball Buddhists and bored Buddhists, or bored Buddhists, we have, BB Buddhists, okay, basketball Buddhists, especially in California because a lot of basketball. Basketball Buddhists, barbecue Buddhists, bazaar Buddhists. There are a lot of bazaar Buddhists because once a year they'll come out and help out, and it helps the temple, So all these B Buddhists, and they don't, they may not feel that they have to be Buddhist, So I know I said different things, but I think I think we should take seriously. Maybe I hear what you're saying, that Jodo Shinshu temples should probably require or demand more of the members in terms of spirituality. But I know it's difficult because as ministers, we don't, we are hired in some, and we get, so it actually, I prefer the Japan method where ministers are more in charge, priests are more in charge. And technically, I found out, even though it's a religious organization, the key, from my understanding, is only about 3 people can make all the decisions, like resident minister's wife, and then one more person, So I'm not sure if it's legal, but that's the way it is run. Because I don't know why you guys are laughing. Would you like it that way? The ministers, prime minister would like it that way. But when I was a minister for a short time, I didn't quite like it because my raise was put to the board, and but so the people that you're trying to educate or to uplift or whatever, or share, they're the ones that decide. But that's, does it really matter? Okay. Muneto Sensei. Yeah.
Thank you for elaborating on the Shinjin under 7. I know what Thai, Tokunaga, Dennis Hirota,
yeah.
talked about entrusting heart. Thai's term is true entrusting.
Yeah.
But when they use the term entrusting, they don't forget about realization, confidence, joy. I just want to share
Yeah.
this fact.
Yeah, I
And
will.
I'd like to. Sorry, my question is. I wonder if you can elaborate the third one, which is becoming free from calculating mind, calculation, which is doubt in Joro Shinshu term. And in my understanding, there used to be quite a few people in BCA, Hawaii too. They had a serious question with the ministers in regard to this matter of becoming free from doubt, which is shinjin, entrusting heart. So can you elaborate a little bit about this aspect?
Before that, the first point that you made, yeah, I understand Dr. Taimuno, it's, they also acknowledge the other dimensions. But I have no problem their understanding, of course, but it's just that when it's out there, then other people's perception of Shinshu is that that is all, just simply entrusting. So that's why if we have multiple terminologies, and we can make Shinjin fuller, which it deserves. So that's the point. About doubt, I think this is one dimension that I haven't really explored, and I feel less confident. He's confident, but I'm less confident. Is that I think there's a greater sense of confidence that I am assured and that I am destined for Buddhahood. But it's not perfect. I don't think it's perfect. And so there's that other dimension that is not perfect, that there may be a little doubt still, but with regard to that little doubt, I also logically or rationally realize that even that is embraced by Amida, that the vow. The vow is for persons who is not perfect, and so that having that small doubt, that too is embraced, that too is affirmed. But I also feel that, well, in my own experience, there's greater doubt, greater confidence than before, that say 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And so there is definitely growth in my own appreciation of confidence that I'm embraced and I'm fine just the way I am.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right on schedule. Let's take our break and we'll reconvene at 8 o'clock. Okay, we'll have one more minute, and then we'll restart.
Yeah, you gotta.
They're good.
Yeah. What? Which?
Two favorites right there.
Which?
Wake up and we are. May all things be happy.
Yeah.
There's all good.
Okay, let's make our way to our seats.
What is? Hatred is not overcome. So wake up, America.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to use my teacher's voice. So, I was standing back there enjoying myself thinking, when is this going to start? Isn't somebody supposed to mention that we have to restart? And I say, oh, that's me. So here I am, restarting, right on time.
Okay.
I'm ready. Are you? It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. Okay. So the second session is entitled "Life is a Beautiful Bumpy Road," and so we're looking at stage 6 here, and he goes through the Shinjin transformation. So he's swimming like same way that he did number 3. I mean, it looks the same from the outside, but internally it's very different. The sailor is mentally all very different. And that's the content. This is the theme of what we'll be talking about now. So one thing is actually, if you can, I don't know if you can see it on the sketch, that at stage 3, the waves are more turbulent, and actually the water is colder, cold and very turbulent. But in my great illustration, I'm sure you can see that number 6, it's calmer. Okay, so same ocean, did it really change? Did the ocean change? No, actually, this is subjective perception by the sailor that the ocean is calmer and warmer because his mind has changed. So ocean hasn't changed. His mind has changed. So that's often the case. I mean, Buddhism places quite a bit of premium on the mind, and the mind determines how we see the world. In the extreme case, there is a school of Buddhism called consciousness-only school. You know? Yuishiki, or Yogacara. You know? And that's what they say. They go even to the point where saying, nothing exists out there, only the mind exists. And actually, you know, in October, I'm helping this Professor Yokoyama, who is like the most well-known scholar of Yogacara. And he asked me, he called me to have drink with him. And I said, uh-oh, I know him. He wants something from me. He's my, you know, like senpai from University of Tokyo. He's about 7 years older. So he's 77. And when I see him, he can barely, I mean, walk almost. And he loves to drink sake. And then so when I see him, you know, he keeps, you know, I said, I think you should slow down. He says, daijoubu, you know. And then in the meantime, he's, you know, he says, I want to have a class teaching Yogacara in English. Actually, he was invited by BCA for their ministers' meeting. And I just liked them. Some of them invited him back again. So he got this, you know, this going to overseas, especially to America, and he said people are interested, and I want to, you know, teach it in English so I can, you know, propagate other countries. Actually, he goes to China, and then he goes to Taiwan, and so he's very active. And so anyway, so we decided. I said, okay, I'm interested in myself, so I'll help you, and so we'll teach this class once a month. And we'll charge, you know, $10 each time, and then I sent out information. Already we got 50 people signed up, so I think we have to cut it off at 100. But there's a greater interest in Japan in learning Buddhism through English. Actually, I should tell you also about through the BDK Japan, you know, the association that will give you the badge. I started teaching English, Buddhism through English. And especially, I started about 7 years ago. Then I had been getting, you know, maybe 20 students. And then I thought, well, maybe with the Olympics coming up in 2 years, we can have people trained to explain Buddhism to foreigners in English. And then so I said, we'll give out kind of like a credential, a BDK credential. Then we have over 80 students sign up. We had to cut it off. So many people are interested, and they're lured by English. And they often say, in a way, it makes more sense in English and than these difficult Chinese characters, you know. And I've been quite surprised that a lot of people feel that way. And then I have a junior colleague of mine. He's been putting out books on like Buddhism in English, the Eigo de Buddha, you know, something. Or then he just came out. Some of you know Mr. Ogi, Reverend Ogi. He knows English well, so he starts, you know. I think, you know, I mean, he and I mean, he's the administrator for my class, and so he just put out a book, Shin Buddhism in English, or Shin terms in English, and with Japanese explanation of, you know, like main terms like Shinjin. Unfortunately, he's got entrusted in there, so I said, darn, you know. But I told him I didn't, you know. But anyway, that's been selling very well. It was one of the top sellers in that field. Anyway, I kind of strayed off, but there's a great interest in. I think English is a skillful means for some of the younger people to learn Buddhism. So you know, in any situation, you need skillful means. You know, we have to get people coming to learn and study. In this summer session case, the skillful means are the refreshments, right? Or the post-lecture beer. Well, anyway, so just wanted to say that Buddhism, English, and tomorrow in my DVD about some people will comment on that. Rather than saying, you know, Shoujo Mujo, you know, it was a difficult Chinese character, folk character, to talk about impermanence. Everything's changing. And they said, oh, that's what it means. Change, you know. And they get it better than if you say something like Shogyo Mujo. It's just very classic. Okay, so I veered off quite a bit from talking about Yogacara, and Yogacara says nothing exists out there. I think that's a little too extreme. I think we have to put it in context. But the point I wanted to make is that how we see the world is up to your mind. And that is the fundamental premise of Buddhism. And so with my mind, I create the world. That's a famous passage in Dhammapada. And so it doesn't mean I create the tree, you know. It's just how the tree is perceived. That's how it's up to my mind. And that is fundamental. So because he changed his views, then the ocean now seems different. So actually Shinran likes to use the metaphor of ocean, but he uses it in both the negative and the positive, so to speak. So I have here. Please look at. Maybe we can. I can have you say this. These are words of Shinran. 2a. Okay. So this is the usage of ocean in a kind of a what I call negative. Okay. I know. Okay. 1, 2, 3. I know truly how grievous it is that I, Gutoku Shinran, am sinking in an immense ocean of desires and attachment, and am lost in vast mountains of fame and advantage. So ocean of desires and attachment. So immense ocean. So here's using the ocean as a metaphor for attachment and desires. But at the same token, he uses ocean-like primal vow and sea of inconceivable virtue. So ocean can turn into virtue. And so please read the next one, how joyous I am. Okay, 1, 2, 3. How joyous I am, my heart and mind being rooted in the Buddha ground of the universal vow, and my thoughts and feelings flowing within inconceivable Dharma ocean. So this is the one we just read earlier. And so, so same ocean, but he perceives it in a different way. So that's the here and then here. I think we can, and now for the sailor, ocean is a sea of virtue. And okay, so what happens at this stage? And so that's the topic of from now on. Okay, there are a number of what I call spiritual benefits. First is assurance. Assurance. You know that one of the benefits of Shinjin is that you get assurance that you will become the Buddha. Well, you are already in the Buddha's circle or sphere of compassion. So wherever you are and you come to realize that you don't have to go anywhere once this body ends on this earth, then you will be a complete Buddha. And so that is the called assembly of those assured of becoming Buddha. Shoujoju. Okay? And sometimes it's called rank. You reach the rank of non-retrogression. Not retrogress means go back, or backslide. So this was a concern for the Buddhists because they didn't want to backslide or retrogress. But if you reach this age, you can only go forward. And in the case of the Theravadins, I talked about the stream enterer. At that stage, they're guaranteed in 7 lifetimes to become enlightened, become arhat. And so there was a concern of the Buddhists that they don't want to backslide or retrogress, but they are, or in other words, the assured. Okay. So second one is clarify the direction with confidence. So with this assurance, we're able to utilize our knowledge and past experience to determine the direction with confidence. So at this stage, he's swimming and he's kind of guessing where the island is, but he's not sure. So that's not a good situation, that you're swimming, but you're not sure if you're going in the right direction. Have we all experienced that sometimes in our lives? You're struggling, but I'm not sure if this is the right direction. And it's not a good place to be, actually, although you can all learn from that, any experience. But so not knowing if he's going in the right direction makes him even more tired. It saps more energy, I think. So, but now here he has. I'm going to erase this YouTube thing. Okay, so here at this stage, he has confidence. So he has more space in his heart, right? More space in his heart, and you're not stressed out, you're not bummed out. So he said he can exercise his knowledge or make it come alive. And he's a sailor, so he has knowledge about how to tell direction. He couldn't do it here because he was just just trying to survive. And then he sees by now, because he fell over at dusk, and he's been gradually, it's at nighttime, and he can see the moon and the stars, and he's able to look at it very, clearly. And from his knowledge, he says, okay, I'm in this direction, and the island is in this direction, so I must be going in the right direction. And he's able to also, this is the wind, so he's able to pick up the wind. So the point is that with more space in your heart, you can exercise, make use of your knowledge, and to clarify and to know with greater certitude which direction is the right direction. Okay. So this is the second one. And the third one is, before I talk about the caring for others, I didn't put it in here. Maybe as number 3 or 2A or 2B, you can put in sense of beauty. Beauty in things. And this is one dimension of spirituality that we can emphasize more, is that with clarity and assurance that you see more beauty in others and around you. What seems like an ordinary thing, like a flower or a leaf, well, most people find that beautiful, but one would find greater beauty. So he would look around and he finds, a bird flying, and he sees the water, and they seem much more vibrant, and than before. He doesn't take it for granted. The ultimate awakened person is the Buddha, and did you know that some Buddhas wear sunglasses? Have you ever seen a Buddha statue with sunglasses? You have? Well, who said I have? Okay. Where? You have? You have? Oh, can you bring it to me tomorrow? Okay. Yeah, because I've never seen one. Monk. Monk with a, yeah. Okay, I've seen those. Yeah. Theravada monk, right? The yellow robes. Yeah. Okay, and but actually that's good too. But actually, I'm saying why does the Buddha wear sunglasses? Enlightened. Yeah, but so you mean he's kind of shining, glowing. Yeah. Yeah, but what was that?
His future is so bright he has to wear shades.
His future is so bright. Oh, that's good. Actually, it's more like it's bright right now, here and now. But actually, well, it's more close to you than, because it's more what he sees out there, not how people see him. Yeah, obviously people see him, kind of glowing, but actually, because he sees so much beauty that things are shimmering and glowing, and so it's so bright that he has to wear shades. Yeah, so it's actually a metaphor for how, for an enlightened being, things seem very, beautiful. And so, take it further. We make a lot of distinctions between, good-looking person and not so good-looking person, and we have certain perceptions of who is handsome and who is not handsome, who is not beautiful. From a standpoint of Buddha, everybody's beautiful, and
where everybody sees the Buddha's the Buddha nature within the Buddha. But the Buddha sees the Buddha nature in everyone.
Okay, great. Did you hear that? Okay. So Buddha sees the Buddha nature in everybody, whereas people only see the Buddha nature mostly in the Buddha. So yeah, that's another way of saying that Buddha sees goodness in everyone. And also, I think Buddha will see everybody equally. That's one of the values and attributes of an enlightened person, that equality. And that's related to how you see beauty. Actually, water, if you look at it, I emphasize the fact that water is so precious. But if you look at water, of course, water can take many forms. Tsunami is not good, But I'm just talking about water itself. And if you think about it, wow, this is like liquid diamond. Have you? I mean, it's just. What can I say? Words fail when you really think about how how necessary it is, but at the same time, it's an object of beauty. Not all the time, but sometimes it's really something to behold. So he, as he swims, he's looking around and he sees more beauty, and he sees the beauty in the sun, and the wind feels really good, and he's so happy to be alive, and so life is vibrant and so beautiful, and so that's another attribute of someone at this stage. Okay, the third stage, the number 3 that I have written down here, is caring for others. So actually, even when he was struggling, it crossed his mind, I wonder what happened to my buddies. Actually, he was out here with 2 other buddies, And after he fell over, he didn't see them. He didn't know what happened to them. Well, mostly he didn't have the space in his heart to even worry about him, think about him. He's just fighting for his own survival. And now that he's got more space in his heart, he's thinking, oh, I wonder where they are. And then he's looking around, see if he can even spot them. And so that is a symbolic for caring for others. And so with this sense of assurance, we are able to think about others, or he is able to think about. As he swims, he keeps as his eye out for his buddies. There are now, and so it's an important part of at this stage, and I wanted to talk a little bit about. Actually, there are changes going on in Japan amongst the Buddhists, especially after the 3/11 tsunami. There are more people, more Buddhists especially, are talking about social engagement, and so there was a book written by president of Otani University, which is the flagship university of the Otani branch, and he wrote a book called something to the effect of can Buddhists be involved in social engagement? And his answer is yes. Clear yes. And this is in the backdrop of Shinshu people and Buddhists saying that the aim of Buddhism is simply the enlightenment of the mind, and we should be concerned only with the internal and not be bothered by what is out there. And so it's very significant that a major a person with this stature is clearly saying that not only can we not do it, we ought to do it. We ought to be more involved. And actually, the chaplaincy program, which is not well developed in Japan, but really began to take off after the tsunami. And one of the universities, national university, the northern Tohoku, the east Tohoku, so in Sendai, the National University in Sendai, there was a person there who really felt strongly about the religious institutions nurturing chaplains to deal with many of the issues that are confronting Japanese society. And so actually, when I was still working, I was asked by our president of the university to start a chaplaincy program at Musashino University. And so we put out a ad and that we're going to have this, this training program. And we call it clinical religious teachers. Yeah. So we use the word clinical, which is kind of in Japanese, rinsho shukyoshi. And so it has an element of kind of science and medical dimension. So I think that may be a draw. But we only have a spot for 7 people, and we had over 60 people apply. And we had just 2 of us, we had a hard time. We had to interview a lot of people. It was kind of a happy occasion to have so many people interested. So, but we could only select 7. So, and that kind of program is being started at every Buddhist university. And so that is definitely a change. Another thing is the medical profession is taking greater interest in getting the religious people involved with dealing with, hospice and dying, death and dying. And I think Japan is very, I hate to use the word, I think slow or backwards when it comes to medicine and religion working together. Actually, it's so different in Korea and Taiwan. Let's just say this. In Japan, ministers are discouraged to go to the hospital to do visits because they think if a minister comes, you mean the patient says, I'm not there yet. So they imagine death. So because it's partly a problem with Japanese Buddhism is that ministers are perceived as the ritualists for death rites, funerals, memorial services, graveside visits. So don't come when I'm still alive in the hospital, So, but in Korea, I went to a Buddhist university. They have a hospital called Dongguk University, and huge hospital. And I was so surprised because in one of the floors, they had a funeral parlor in the hospital. And that's unthinkable in Japan or maybe in the US. And Taiwan, I think, too, is very progressive when it comes to medicine and religion working together. But in Japan, they're quite backwards, I think. And I was invited by a doctor friend of mine to come and talk to some doctors and nurses and caregivers. As you know, Japan will be experiencing a huge wave of deaths because, I hate to say it, but our generation is getting older and the baby boomers are large, and so there's going to be a large numbers of death in the next 20, 30 years, and it's already happening. And my friend asked me to come, and I'm very heartened by that because then Buddhism can really work with people who really deal with difficulties and suffering. And as we have been talking about, aging and death and illness are our concern as well. And if we can work together, that would alleviate, suffering of a lot of people. So, so that's why. So caring for others and benefiting others, obviously, is part and parcel of even shinjin, spiritual awakening. If you just stay within yourself, and as I was saying earlier, when you were, I forgot, when she was talking about, your warm feelings and feeling of joy, that there should also be an element of reaching out to others, and so because that is intrinsic, it is essential part of spiritual awakening. If I would almost say, if there isn't that concern for others, then that religious experience is somewhat doubtful. Of course, there's a whole question as to, you cannot judge from the outside and all that. Who is to say, how much a person is doing? But still, that person would know. Okay, so the last point is, I feel as though I am swimming on my own strength and effort, but much of the credit goes to the ocean that supports me. So that's another, this is probably kind of a theme that in our tradition we emphasize, that we don't live on our own power, but we are allowed to live because of many of the factors that sustain our lives. So here, in this case, you think, that it's not the case that you are swimming because only of your effort. But the fact that you're able to swim is due to the ocean that is supporting you. So the ocean, again, is the other dimension, the other power, or power through others. Actually, I like, the word other power is also limited. I like power through others. Like, other power has an image of a kind of a lightning hitting you. But power through others, that others, through even the water and the love of our family and the friendship of our friends, and all of these, they give you power or the spiritual power, mental power. And so it's coming through them from the side, and then the earth that supports us. So it's not just a singular lightning-like power, that it's all around us. And so, and then to point this out, I want to do a quiz. There was an experiment done by a biologist, an American, and then this was, here is a box, a wooden box, well, let's just say 50 centimeters. This is the, okay, centimeter. It's, so width, length, and then 50 centimeters. And then you have a rye seedling, rye wheat, that's 18 centimeters high. And then it grew roots, of course. And this scientist, he took every strand and measured the length of each root, even roots that cannot be seen by the naked eye. You have to look at, you got to use microscope, okay? And then he added them all up. So the size is, 50 centimeters. How long he added all the roots? How long did the root come out to be? Hi, okay, anybody? 50 what? 57? Oh, 50 centimeters. But the box is 50 centimeters. No, I'm talking about, so there's more than one root. So if you added all of them up, so this is, okay, I shouldn't question your answer. Okay.
5 miles.
5 miles. Thank you. 5 miles. Okay. 5 miles. Okay, anybody else?
I was going to say 100 yards.
100 yards. Okay. 100 yards. Okay, one more. Okay.
125,000 cubic centimeters.
Centimeters. Okay, what is it in, like, can you say it in yards or miles? Because it's... Okay. No, anybody else? Just one more person. Okay. Okay. Reverend Okano.
I think they're
5 miles?
no, 50 yards.
50 yards. Okay.
50 meters.
50 meters. Boy, we have all different categories. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to use, I got to use, it was in meters, so, so I think, let's just go with 100 meters. So if it were, then this is correct, okay? But it's more than that. 1,000 meters.
Okay.
More than that. It's not, this is not the answer. 10,000 meters. So meters like that, right? Mm-hmm. Meters. Okay. So this is, do you know, since, how long this is this in miles?
6.2.
Well, this is almost 10 kilos, okay? So it's about a little less than 10 miles, I guess. Okay? Actually, 10,000, 100 meters, no. There is a K added to it. Kilometers. It's 1.5, 1.5 times longer than the Siberian railways. Yeah. Yes. That's, I still don't believe it, but it's supposedly true. And if you look at internet, this particular one, you can't find it well, but there are other like bluegrass. They're almost as long with the same kind of dimensions. But the point of the matter is that such a dinky, you know, I shouldn't say dinky, but 18 centimeters, and the roots to support it is longer than, 10,000 kilometers. And I still don't believe it. Actually, this was, I found in a book by a well-known author on Buddhism. What was his name? Well-known, but now I can't remember. You'll come to me. I'm having my moments. Okay, but it doesn't matter. So now I'm using it as an excuse I should be, looking at myself, but I'm using to say it doesn't matter, to cover my weakness. Anyway, okay. But the point is that such a small seedling requires so much more to support this. And so it's almost a metaphor for us that if you replace this wheat with you, and actually what supports us is that huge. So it would include, even if you take this water, which is, you cannot have water without, clouds and gravity, and then the sun, which is 91 million miles away, and the whole universe is supporting us. So Dalai Lama has a book, something to the effect, the universe and the atom. And so, I am supported by the whole universe. And if you look at this, the ratio, it's almost like that. That small, a seedling is supported by what amounts to be as enormous as the universe. And when you realize that, you cannot help but to feel gratitude for what we all have. And so it's the sense that, and so this person at this stage is feeling that. So these are the virtues of 6, which is completely different from 3. And so we have explored, the stage 6, when you have a confidence, assurance, clarity, caring for others, realization of beauty around you. Okay, so that concludes my second presentation. All right, so question? Okay.
The floor is now open for questions.
Sensei, your description of changing. So, when you describe the shimmering and all that, so that's like a physical manifestation of what changing is.
Physical manifestation?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Like, you can see everything is more clear. Maybe you can see the aura around things like that. So I think that is in itself is like a physical manifestation. So you're seeing something that is outside of yourself. Yeah, and clear, very clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure if I would say physical manifestation, but it's more. I don't think that the external objective conditions have changed. It's just that we see it as shimmering and with greater beauty, and so I tend not to be too mystical about it, it's more matter of how one perceives it, because one's mind is clear and things are clear, and you're not bothered by worries and etc. So for us ordinary imperfect beings, it doesn't happen all the time. I mean, we get down and whatever, but there are greater moments of these clarity and beauty. Yeah.
And I have another question about, when you have that description there, where are the sharks? I mean, are the sharks part of the problem? Like, the wave is up and down.
Yeah.
So could the sharks be another description of life's problem, I guess.
Yeah, well, okay. I hadn't thought about the sharks. You're making it complicated. But again, if you become basically happy, then the sharks, you can deal with the sharks better because you can see the sharks more clearly, and deal with it in whatever way. And the world is as it is. I mean, you have sharks, and so you can deal with it better because you are mentally more together. That's But I will think about that and see. Yes.
Sharks have Buddha nature too. Is that correct?
Okay. Well, yes. That's true. They have Buddha nature. Yeah. So I automatically assumed that it was a bad shark. But that's what she meant, Right? Right? Yeah. So, and again, just like the example of the guy coming in the door, for a Buddha, he is just a regular fellow human being. So in the same way, as he pointed out, the shark is a sentient being, and the teaching in Nirvana Sutra is that all beings, all sentient beings, possess Buddha nature. So that actually is a perception from the Buddha. That's why. So the more enlightened you are, the more beauty and potential you see in other people. And so the more negative you are about other people and the world, then I think it's an indication that you have some more work that you need to do. Yes.
Okay, I want to share this story about April Fool's Day, 1946, where the tsunami hit the Big Island.
Big Island, yeah.
And it's an interesting story because I have it here. I want you to read it, and very interesting because there's several people in this group related to some of the people that was involved in this.
I see.
There's a story of Herbert Nishimoto that was caught by the third big wave and was pulled out to sea.
Yeah.
And he survived for 27 hours. And he faced shock too. Okay? And what he did was get the debris, gathered around him, tied it together, and luckily he had an axe. He pounded it together and made a raft. But there was a shock under him, and he making all kind of noise and scared the wave. But what was funny was, because he was gone for 27 hours, the mother had Bonsang come over and pray for him.
Okay, who's Bonsang?
They don't mention the Bonsang, but
Okay.
Mother Bonsang.
No, I'm saying some people don't know what Bonsang is.
Okay.
Priest.
Okay. Yeah, okay. And I don't know who the priest was, but when the candle light went out, he said, "Oh, I think your son died." Okay. So 27 hours later, when they saw Herbert on the raft jumping around, say, "Hey, that's him." Okay. So anyway, I'm going to share this story.
Okay. Yeah, I have read about that, but I'd like to see it again. Yeah, sure. Okay, so okay.
Funny because on Sunday I went to a Hiroshima Kenji-gai picnic, and this guy, actually his brother, was one of the ones that told the story about the whole.
I see. Yeah.
Are there any other questions here?
This one kind of relates maybe even a little bit more to something you said yesterday, but something you said today does tie it in. So, and my wife and I actually talked about this after we got home last night, and she kind of was the originator of this question. So the diagram where you've got the five senses, and then the feelings, and then the thoughts, and finally the intention, I think.
Intention. Yeah.
So, and how can you relieve suffering? And it seemed like the key was if you can control, or that one example, there was another tradition that says just get rid of the thought part.
Yeah.
Okay, so my wife, I thought, had a very good question that some people may try to take a shortcut to relieve suffering by not even allowing the senses to perceive what's going on. So for instance, if we might make this example a little clearer, like let's say we take the example of the homeless sweeps. We call them sweeps. I don't like that term. But where there's some suffering induced by us seeing this misery in the street, and we don't like what it makes our mind have to confront. So there's these various laws that have been passed to kind of deal with that. So that's one example. But maybe in the story you told about where you bring up environmental things, you got criticized, that's not really Buddhist, and you said, yes, it is. Well, maybe it could be, I wonder if this person, part of their problem with it was, I'm taking a kind of a shortcut. I'm turning away from seeing things as they don't understand this a bit. Turning away from seeing things as they really are so that they don't have to feel like they need to confront and take action. And so I just thought if you could comment on that. Sorry, kind of a long question.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, with the person that criticized me for the environment, I don't. There may be that tendency because he said, "I'm only concerned about my spiritual well-being," and so maybe he's shutting that out. Although at the same breath he said, "Yeah, I'm concerned about environment too, but I don't go around, propagating that or something to that effect." So I think he probably, I sense that a tendency to shut these social problems to the side, and I think in that particular person, and so out of sight, out of mind, then you relieve suffering, but that's not the Buddhist way. The Buddhist way would be to see things as they are and affirm what is going on, and then you take action in whatever manner that you see fit, and without being bummed out. Now, that's the key. So I keep emphasizing this, because I talked about Donald Trump, and actually I brought that up. Initially I was bummed out, but since then I'm not so bummed out. I mean, I've seen for what it is, and then I do what I can to change the situation eventually, but I don't want to be swayed by it, and to be really upset about it. So that's the issue, and again, being a Buddhist doesn't mean to accept everything as it is. There are certain things that you have to stand up for, but always know that whatever you stand up for, it is in a way, your perception, your perception. And so you can almost say it is ego-centered. But still, you do what you can. But I would say, I'll be kind of emphasizing this tomorrow in the DVD, but having said this, I think there are certain values that as Buddhists we cannot compromise, or that we say value, and these are three things: compassion or love, and then equality, and oneness. These are the three things that I think is true not only in Buddhism, but any true religion that I see in Christianity and Islam. These qualities of wisdom, compassion and love, equality, and then sense of oneness or togetherness. And so if there are things that's happening that undermines them, then I personally, I can't speak for others, but for me, I need to do what I can to speak out. So to be spiritual doesn't mean to be wishy-washy and have no views about matters of the world. So if you look at Buddha, we all know he fought against the caste system, that he took in disciples from the untouchable class, which was unthinkable at that time. And so he also included women into his Sangha. Yeah? And so right now, Jodo Shinshu, we have the largest percentage of women become priests. 30% of priests in Japan are women. So, you know, I think that those things are very important to... okay?
And with that, I'd like to bring this session to an end. Thank you very much, Dr. Tanaka. If you brought any goodies in a container, make sure you take your container home, or else it will be donated to the Toyama Las Vegas Fund. So make sure you get it. Thank you again. Dr. Tanaka will be here.
Yeah, we'll form a table over there. And,
form a table over
so
there.
if anybody wants to stay, please. And I think we have some beverages.
Yes, we do. Okay,
So
thank you very much again.
If you haven't seen the badges you want, you can come and look at it now, and then you can have a better sense of which one you want to pick up tomorrow.